Any seats, I think, will suit you. Thank you. I think we are waiting for some other participants to join, and then we'll start in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Okay, I think we are there. Maybe some participants will join us later, but I think shortly. So we can start. I'm just asking my technical support if it's okay to start. Yes, wonderful. Okay, so welcome everyone. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, sitting with us today, and all those who are connected via our YouTube event. My name is Chiara Anselmo. I'm a CBM Italy director, advocacy director, sorry for for the mistake. And I have the honor to moderate this exchange forum on good practices to tackle intersectional discrimination and violence against women with disabilities. We are sitting today in this prestigious and meaningful location, and for this, let me thank you very much, the member of the Disability Intergroup of the European Parliament, Honorable Gemma, and her assistants, Mrs. Cardi Barducci and Mrs. Filomeno, for their really attentive support. Let me share also our gratitude to our esteemed speakers joining the event, traveling from abroad, and ready to share with generosity their experiences and knowledge. The agenda of today foresees two sessions. The first session will take place from now till 11 a.m. And the second session will start at 11:30 after the break and will last until 1 p.m. And it will also include space for questions and answers. So we have international sign language and captioning available both in presence and remotely. So I would kindly ask all the speakers to speak clearly, not too fast, so that our interpreters will be able to do their job and make this event as most accessible as possible. And if I'm also speaking fast, please let me know. So welcome everyone again. I think we all know why we are here today, and it's about sharing experiences, find ways, tools that are in our hands to combat violence against women with disabilities. As we know from the data in Europe, there are about 36 million women with disabilities, and many of them are exposed to violence. UN Women states that women with disabilities are exposed from 2 to 5 times more than women without disabilities. But the fact is that it's not just about exposure to violence. They have also greater difficulties in escaping it due to disability-related discrimination that leads them to be infantilized, ignored, and not believed. Rooted in gender inequality and abuse of power, gender-based violence manifests itself through inaccessibility of information and services, exclusion from education, poverty, dependency on caregivers, and the lack of protective networks, and the disbelief that harassed women will report the violence. Gender-based violence takes many forms, like denial of medication and necessary assistive devices, refusal by home care workers to assist with daily activities such as eating, dressing, verbal abuse, removal of communication aids, psychological manipulation, damage to property and pets, sexual violence and forced sterilization and medical treatment. In March 2025, the CRPD Committee published its concluding observation of the European Union and expressed real concerns about several issues on women and girls with disabilities, highlighting the heightened risk of violence and abuse for them, in particular referring to Article 16, freedom from exploitation, violence, and abuse, and Article 17, protecting integrity of the person. So now, this morning, the topic will be discussed through many speakers' experiences, and it will be a journey that the speakers will be able to offer us and accompanying us to understand that it is possible to do something. It is possible to do something that is working, it is effective, and it will involve many actors and many sectors too. So I would say I wish you all a fruitful discussion with no further ado. I'm here delighted to launch this learning experience, an exchanging opportunity, which is part of the project CARE-INT, funded by EU Erasmus+. So in order to understand better the framework where this exchange forum is taking place, I leave my colleague Giulia Tedesco, project manager of the project CARE-INT from CBM Italy, to let us know better what is the purpose of the project and what is the framework. Thank you, Giulia.
Thank you, Chiara, and thank you to all of you for being here. It's a real pleasure to see you all here. Thank you for your time and for your contribution to this important topic. So, my name is Giulia Tedesco. I'm Program Manager for CBM Italia, and I'm the Project Manager for the CARE-INT project, which is the framework within which we organized today's event. So, first of all, I would like to introduce to you CBM Italy. So we are an international organization committed to health, education, employment, and the rights of people with disabilities, where it's needed, so both globally and in Italy. To share some data with you, in 2024, we were able to reach over 1 million people in Italy, Africa, Asia, South America, and Europe. And we basically worked in 12 countries through 43 different projects. So we are guided by the principles embodied in the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. And in Italy and in Europe, we mostly work with teachers, schools, students, young people, organizations of people with disabilities, local partners, to share and promote inclusion and the rights of people with disabilities. Of course, if you would like to know better, you can visit our website, cbmitalia.org, and you are welcome to do so. What I would like to present to you briefly is the CARE-INT project in the next slide. So, CARE-INT project, equipping future care professionals to tackle intersectional discrimination and violence against women with disabilities. Of course, as Chiara already said, it's a EU-funded through Erasmus Plus project, and it has a total duration of 19 months. So we started in March this year. We will finish next year in September. And in these 19 months, we will work together with our partners. In this project, we have 3 main partners, and they are all here today, so thank you for that. We will work with Fondazione IREA, which is an Italian-based organization offering training programs for professionals, for care professionals, and providing services for people with disabilities. The second partner is Fondazione Libellula, based in Milan, Italy, expert in gender violence and committed to gender equity and inclusion. And the third partner is König Willem I College, an institution, an educational institution based in the Netherlands that offers more than 200 different vocational training programs in the Netherlands. And it's involved more than 18,000 students. So when we first started thinking about this project, we wanted to highlight and focus on the key role that care professionals working in domestic settings can play in fighting and recognizing, address, and prevent intersectional violence and discrimination against women with disabilities. So our main objective is exactly to enhance and support the training of future care professionals. As you can see in the next slide, I would like to explain to you the 3 main objectives of the project. So on the left side, you can see the 3 objectives, and on the right side of the slide, you can see the activities related to each objective. So, first, we would like to define the crucial role of care professionals in fighting intersectional violence. And to do so, mainly, we would like to share knowledge, to collect and share knowledge. And we do it through 3 main points. So we already collected and prepared a preliminary report where we explore and give an overview of the topic. Through today's event, our exchange forum, we will have the opportunity to hear more experiences and best practices already implemented by many different organizations in Europe. And we will collect all this experience in a digital compendium, which will then inform the next actions, the next project actions. So at number 2, you can see that, which is the main aspect and the core aspect of the project, we would like to equip future care professionals with the skills to effectively recognize, address, and prevent intersectional violence and discrimination. So what we will do is to develop a training module and test it for a training module, for care professionals on the topic. We will be able to test the module with 2 groups of students, both in Italy and in the Netherlands. And through their feedbacks, we will adjust the module and have the final version of it. We are thinking about a very flexible module that can be adopted by different schools, curricula in different countries, and that can respond to the specific students' and teachers' needs. After that, we go to number 3. We would like to provide the school teaching staff with the effective tools and methodologies to strengthen the training of future care professionals. So what we will do is basically to share the training module with the teachers and the teaching staff. So we would like to train the trainers so that they can then adopt the training module in their curricula. And this, of course, will facilitate it and maximize the impact that we would like to have. So these were the main points of the project. Thank you very much for your attention. Of course, if you would like to know more, feel free to email me. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention. And I'm very excited to hear all our following intervention today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julia. It was very useful to understand the focus, I would say, of a CARE-INT project that is really about care professionals and their preparation too. So how they are skilled to identify gender-based violence against women with disability. That will be probably a very good tool in preventing that too. So I think this morning we will be able to go through, as I said, a journey that will show us also what type of challenges women with disabilities face and barriers. And throughout this morning, we will go then into what is going to be the training and experiences on care professionals and their roles and what has been successful so far. So we no further ado, I will say from Julia to Giulia. Then Giulia Traversi, thanks Giulia for being here. So Giulia Traversi works as a women rights officer within a European Disability Forum. And before that, she has a long experience also in a humanitarian sector, again for European Disability Forum, especially in Ukraine. So Giulia will present Bridging Gaps, Gender Mainstreaming in Disability Rights Work. So I would say, Giulia, if you could give us some insight based on your experience with, of course, EDF, what could be effective, powerful tools in creating awareness, first, engagement around this topic, and also, I think you had experience all over Europe, so it's kind of a large experience too. And how also the role of women with disabilities is actually fundamental in all this process of awareness raising. So floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this introduction, Chiara, Julia, and all the participants. It's an honor for me to be here. So as it was mentioned, I work for the European Disability Forum. And today, next slide, please. And today, the aim of what I wish to share with you is how, thanks to the experience of women and girls with disabilities, we can mainstream gender in all the disability rights work, in all the disability advocacy that both organization of persons with disabilities and also organization that works for and with persons with disabilities can do. So I have the pleasure to zoom a bit down and sharing with you some tools, some examples. And next slide, please. Yeah, so I will first of all describe a bit what women's committees are and the role of women committees and why they are so important in the awareness raising and gender mainstreaming thing. And then I would like to just say a few words about the women's committee we have within the European Disability Forum and just share with you few examples of practices or also of work we've been doing together with the women's committee. Next one, please. Yeah. And first of all, just let me briefly tell you about what EDF, the European Disability Forum, is. So we are an umbrella organization, so an independent NGO. And the aim of the EDF is to defend the interests of over 100 million persons with disabilities in Europe. So we work in Europe in the sense of the European Union, but also in Europe as a continent, in its geographical scope. So we have members and partners in within the European Union, but also in what we call EU accession countries, so countries that they are in the process of acceding the European Union, such as Ukraine, Moldova, but also in other neighboring countries, for example, Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and so on. So we really try to bring together OPDs, or representative organization of persons with disabilities, but also disability rights organizations. We are run by persons with disabilities and their families. So we really try to have a strong, united voices for persons with disabilities in Europe. EDF considers the work around gender equality and gender mainstreaming as a priority. And we do so because Chiara was mentioning few data before. Women and girls with disabilities constitute 25.9% of the total population of women in the European Union. So we are talking about many, many persons, and they face multiple and intersectional discrimination every day. We heard about risk of poverty, isolation. The list is very long. There are many women and girls with disabilities that they live in closed settings that we call institutions. They face gender-based violence. They are likely to receive gender-based violence, to be victims of gender-based violence. 2 to 5 times more than the rest of the population. And they have difficulties, they encounter barriers and inaccessibility in terms of accessing, for example, legal procedure, lack of access to justice or to sexual and health and reproductive rights and services. But there are unfortunately few data that really can picture the intersection between gender and disability. There are, of course, valuable sources, for example, from the Eurostat, but also there are institutes, for example, the European Institute of Gender Equality, that every year collect disaggregated data based on disability, not yet based on types of disability and based on gender, and but based on different types of disabilities. But they provide us with few also important data that we can use in our advocacy. And I would like just to mention a couple of data regarding risk of poverty and employment. 22% of women with disabilities are at risk of poverty in the EU, comparing to 90% of men with disabilities and 60% of women without disabilities. And 21% of women with disabilities are in full-time employment, comparing to 30% of men with disabilities and 50% of women without disabilities. This shows us that women with disabilities, they have a worse situation, comparing not only to women without disabilities, but also comparing to their male peers. And this is why the advocacy and the policy work that EDF and many other organizations are trying to do, it's really aimed at ensuring that the obligation of the EU towards international human rights treaties, such as the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, but also the UN CEDAW, so the UN Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination of Violence Against Women, or also the Istanbul Convention, they take into consideration the rights and requirements of women with disabilities. And after this background, I would like to, can you move to the next slide, please? Okay, so, and how we can make sure that our advocacy has an impact. And here I would like to jump on the role of Women's Committee to tell a bit in what a Women's Committee is, what's the role, and why it is so important to ensure that the voices of women and girls with disabilities are heard. So Women's Committee they can have different shape and structures based, of course, on on any organization capacity structures, but the main role is to really mainstream gender and women's rights everywhere. So I will talk later about EDF Women's Committee, but really it's a body. It can be a governing body, it can be a group of experts, but the really aim is to raise awareness, to serve as a network of exchange, of capacity building, knowledge sharing, and to make sure that anything from policies to strategies and within the organization structure, but also externally, they include the perspective of women and girls with disabilities. Next slide, please. And here I put a picture of EDF Women's Committee that was taken at the beginning of this year in Greece, in Thessaloniki. And we also have here with us Luisa, which is a member of the EDF Women's Committee from the Italian Disability Forum. So that was just to share with you a picture of their meeting. Next slide, please. Thank you. So EDF Women's Committee is composed by now 11 members and 4 observers from all over Europe. So they represent different groups of women with disabilities or mothers of persons with disabilities. They are selected every 4 years by our General Assembly and approved by the Executive Committee. So in this case, they are a governing body within our governing bodies, but this is just an example. The shape can be very different when the role and the objective can be the same. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the role is to really mainstream gender, to raise awareness, to include women and girls with disabilities in society, and to making sure that every work which is towards the European Union or the United Nations or at national level includes their perspective. Next one, please. And another key thing, it's really to bridge the gap. I'm writing here, bridging the gap between the disability and the ecofeminist movement. Not because they are necessary two separate movements, but it's because bringing together and advocating for the same collective agenda of women in all their diversity is something key. And EDF Women's Committee, so EDF is part of the European Women's Lobby, and also trying to reach out to several other women's rights organizations through meetings and through conferences, because we really believe in the power of bringing women together with different experience, with different knowledge, to try to advocate for women's rights together. And we recently started a project focusing on this, so trying to combine women with disabilities that they are leader in the disability movements, but also women that they are leader in the feminist movement, to learn from each other, to work, for example, on influences a piece of legislation in a determinate countries, to try to work towards concrete actions. Next one, please. And here I'm gonna just conclude mentioning four points of some examples of recent work that has also had a strong support from the Women's Committee, thanks to their knowledge. And those are some reports or guidance that we've been developing. The first one is the guidance on the transposition of the EU directive on combating violence against women, which is a fundamental law that has been approved in 2024. The second one is the gender mainstreaming package. Then our campaign to ban forced sterilization and the EU gender equality strategy. Next slide, please. Yeah. So I'll say just a few words about this guidance, which is a tool, a report, actually a guidance to support members and partners at member state level in their advocacy towards the governments for the transposition of the directive, because this directive is a very important legislation, is a step forward. And what we are trying to do with this guidance is to present a bit what has changed and what states need to implement at national level related to the directive, but especially how anyone, any organizations can advocate for a more ambitious transpositions, because there is something in the law, but there are some gaps, for example, failure to criminalize forced sterilization, or some efforts could be done more in terms of data collection, but also on to ensure that, for example, rape is defined based on lack of consent. So that's just a simple tool to do this. Next one, please. And then gender mainstreaming package, which again, it's a set of tools which aims is to mainstream women's rights in OPDs, but in any organizations. Next one, please. Yeah, and it's composed by four documents, let's say. The first one is a simple and actually also funny test. You can move to the next slide. Yeah, to assess where an organization stands in terms of integrating gender equality internally and externally. So based on that, there is a sort of scoring system, but just to show in a more interactive way the situation of an organization. And next one, please. And then we developed a gender action plan with concrete action and goals to track the progress of an organization. And we included some definitions about gender equality and gender mainstreaming, and some concrete action of what can be integrated within internal structure of an organization. And next one, please. Yeah, and then guidelines for the creation of women's committee. So step by step, how we can establish a dedicated space for women and girls with disabilities. And the next one, please. Yeah, and a template we talked about internally with what can be done, how an organization can integrate gender equality and gender mainstreaming, but also externally in the advocacy or policy work of an organization. This template is just to support how we can integrate the gender perspective within accessibility or healthcare or education, employment, care, and so on. And I move to the next. Yeah, and finally, the gender equality strategy, which was launched by the European Commission over the summer. So we've tried to participate and work a bit, meeting different members of the European Parliament, but also the gender equality unit of the European Commission. And thanks to the Women's Committee, we were able to develop some concrete recommendations that are part also of our advocacy for this important strategy. And next one, and I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna just wrap up. I hope I stayed in the 15 minutes. Just wrapping up and saying a few words of how important is gender mainstreaming and having and sharing good practices to really ensure that we raise awareness, we bring the voices of women and girls with disabilities, but we don't do it alone. We do it with all the disability movements, involving also women's rights organizations, so the role of the feminist movement itself, so we can all learn from each other and continue our efforts to combat violence against women and making sure that everyone is on board and no one is left behind. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Giulia. Thank you so much. When I was talking about generosity, you provided so many tools in your presentation. It's fantastic. I think EDF's tools usually are so clear, so very much user-friendly, and I always use them. So thanks so much. And I think this is exactly the purpose of this meeting, is to share information, tools, whatever we have, and to become better also in doing our job. So thanks you so much. And also very interesting the point that about data and the need for evidence-based advocacy, which is absolutely important that we have inclusive research practices in that sense for also women with disabilities, and the fact that being together with the feminist movement and women with disabilities movement is just that you reach more at the end, so you amplify your effectiveness in a way. So thank you so much. I will thank you also for giving this overview about advocacy. At the European level, it's very complex to do, but it is working. So I think now from this wider overview, we kind of go a bit deep down and maybe more into what actually women with disabilities and intellectual disabilities are facing and challenges. So I thank you very much, Elena Lambsdorff. Thank you so much for joining, Elena. Elena has a background in history, long experience with persons with intellectual disabilities. She's currently working for Inclusion Europe as a communication officer. And Helena will present sexual violence against people with intellectual disabilities and how to prevent it. So, Elena, I would say the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very. Is it good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for organizing this event. As you said, I'm Helena. I work for Inclusion Europe. Inclusion Europe is an organization similar to EDF, also an umbrella organization, but we're part of EDF, so it's a Russian doll situation a little bit. And we represent people with intellectual disabilities across Europe and their families. That's around 20 million people with intellectual disabilities. And as we've heard before, people with disabilities are in general much more prone to experiencing violence and having problems reporting that violence. And when it comes to people with intellectual disabilities, that is even more increased. People with intellectual disabilities, especially women and girls, are amongst the groups most vulnerable to forms of violence, but especially sexual violence. This is even more increased when they live in institutions. When people are forced to live in institutions, their right to decide, their agency is taken away, and they're made dependent on the caregivers, and that makes them very vulnerable to abuse. They also often lose their legal rights and have almost no opportunities to point out what is happening to them and to prevent that from happening further. And I just want to give you some quick numbers. I know that can always be a bit overwhelming, but I'll just give you some clear ones from a report that Inclusion Europe published a couple of years ago called Life After Violence, looking at women in institutions. 60% reported experiencing sexual harassment beginning at the age of 15, 25% reported being stalked, and 45% said they experienced physical, sexual, or psychological violence before the age of 15. I think these numbers are shocking, and I think that they already speak for themselves a lot. And a survivor and self-advocate, Elisabeta Moldovan, excuse me, woman with an intellectual disability, spoke about her experience living in an institution in Romania and said, sexual violence took place frequently. There were staff members, guards, teachers, doctors who sexually abused residents. But it also happened between residents. When a woman got pregnant and delivered her baby, the baby was taken away from the mother and brought to an orphanage. The reason I'm reading that last sentence is also because it shows the consequences of sexual abuse can be as traumatic as the sexual abuse itself. It's a cascade of trauma that unfolds and that needs to be prevented. When we move away from institutions and look at people with intellectual disabilities that live in the community, probably with their families, we have the issue of segregation anyway, because people, especially starting at the age of, I don't know, kindergarten age, children with intellectual disabilities are already segregated very early on when it comes to education. And across Europe, that's at least 500,000 children with intellectual disabilities that are segregated in special schools, and over 18,000 children with intellectual disabilities do not receive any education at all. That is really problematic when it comes to preventing sexual violence. I remember my time in school and just about how when you reach puberty and everyone talks about who you have a crush on and, oh, you had your first kiss, you have a group of people who informs you, who is interested and who is also looking out for you because you have peers that are developing and interested in these same topics that you might not want to talk to your parents about, that you might not want to talk to your family members about because it's intimate and personal and private, and it's a much nicer thing to share with friends than with family members. And when we deny children with intellectual disabilities education, we also deny them the social opportunities and the social backup to also look out for them and to prevent these things from happening. Another reason is just that also sex education is provided in schools. I wouldn't say it's great, but it is there. There's also a lot of work to be done there. But in the schools for people with intellectual disabilities, it's not always the case that sex education is on the curriculum, and that is because people with intellectual disabilities are often seen or assumed to be asexual because of their disability, and also because it's just more comfortable for the people around them not to deal with the fact that their family members or friends are sexual beings like the rest of us. So again, this lack of education there also is a big contributor to the vulnerability that people with intellectual disabilities face from a young age on, but also later in life. And then when it comes to the sexual abuse having happened, they're often not believed when they report it. People with intellectual disabilities have very slim chances of being believed when they report sexual abuse, and they have even slimmer chances of actually achieving justice because the justice system is set up in a way that is so inaccessible to them that you would need a team of people to explain all the administrative and legal documents, which is the case for most of us, but for people with intellectual disabilities, it is just much more difficult to navigate all of this information that is almost never available and easy to read and understand. And by that being the case, they're often victimized twice, first by the violence and then by the lack of support or justice. So when we come to concrete action and asking how can we prevent sexual violence against people with intellectual disabilities, the first one is pretty clear. It's close institutions. Institutions are hubs for violence, for abuse, for silencing voices, and they have to go. The second one is inclusive education and comprehensible sex education starting early on. And the third one is believing victims and survivors when they speak out about what happened to them, because believing will hopefully lead to acting, and acting will lead to prevention of further sexual abuse down the line. At Inclusion Europe at Inclusion Europe, we are now becoming more active on these topics as well. And over the next 3 years, we will look, if we get the money, that's always a question, we will look at targeting exactly 3 groups to inform and communicate to them clearly on what they can do themselves to prevent these issues that are societal, but that sadly we have to go on group for group. We will talk to people with intellectual disabilities and inform them about where they can receive the information they need. We will provide that information. We will talk to family members and try to destigmatize, because every family is different. There are families that are very open and don't have an issue educating their children about sex and being clear of what sexual abuse looks like, what consent is, how that is communicated, what is okay, what is not okay. And there are families that just don't have the tools for that and don't maybe have the wish to discuss this in this frame of family. And that's okay, but they need to know who then to contact and who then to ask to support their family members so that they receive the education and support they need. And the third group is service providers. And I think this is really great, this project, because I think what we see is that abuse happens in all groups of people. There are family members that abuse family members. There are service providers that abuse service providers. And there are people with intellectual disabilities that abuse people with intellectual disabilities. But all of them need to be aware of what that looks like, need to be able to recognize it, need to be able to know who to contact when that happens, and when they see someone in their group doing that to someone else. And so I think this is a great program, and I hope that what we will be doing will support that in a way. Yeah, and I think in general, my lasting message is that people with intellectual disabilities are no else than us. They have desires, needs, and curiosities, and they're very able to identify what feels good to them and what feels bad to them, and to say that. And we just need to give them the words to do so. And I will end on presenting a project that our member from Czechia did. They made little booklets with pictures inside them and different topics. So I'm just going to hold up these 5 that apply to today. This is saying the life of women. So it's the body and life of a woman and what the developments are and how to deal with that, what belongs there. The same with life of men. They have a booklet on sexual abuse. They have a booklet on OBGYN practices, how these visits go, and they have one on consent and sex and how that can feel in a good way. So one of the parts of our program will be to translate these books into different languages so they can be available to more people with intellectual disabilities. They are written and easy to read and understand. They provide images. And yeah, I think I'm going to end on that. I think there's a lot to be done, and we're hopefully doing that soon. And I think in general, closing institutions and inclusive education are really a tool to prevent sexual abuse from happening towards people with intellectual disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you so much, because I think we had a chance really to feel this situation of women with intellectual disabilities, especially in institutions. So I was wondering, I think those resources you just presented, wonderful. You brought a hard copy. I'm wondering if maybe any digital copy may be available also on.
Not yet, because this is just from our member in Czechia. They did these booklets and they give them to the people that come to their office and have distributed in Czechia. But part of our project will also be to disseminate on social media and to make this a very accessible, available product. Yeah.
So let's hope that also someone is ready to fund all this work, because as you said, there was an appeal in your presentation. I hope it will be heard. And thank you so much also for making very clear that also infantilization of women with disabilities is definitely an issue, So, and the service providers should be able to understand what is a free consent, able to understand when there is a sexual violence abuse and to recognize that also with women with intellectual disabilities, definitely. So we saw from your presentation also that service providers, as you said, can be also good allies, probably. So I will hand over to Mara Ghidorzi for the next contribution. Mara Ghidorzi is a gender expert and a diversity, equity, and inclusion trainer. So you're also a trainer, which is great. And you have a background in sociology and gender policies, and currently you're working for Fondazione Libellula. So Mara will present us an experience from signs to dreams, recognizing and dealing with situations of domestic violence. So in this experience you just had, do you think that professional care personnel are actually key and a good tool to prevent and combat violence against women? In that case, you had this experience, I guess. So, yeah, floor is all yours.
Thank you, Chiara, and thank you for your introduction. 2 words about Libellula Foundation. Is a social enterprise founded with the aim to prevent and to combat gender-based violence and to promote a cultural change for a more equal society based on care, inclusion, and respect for all people. And we have a network around 200 companies, and this is the first network at not only Italian level, but also European level for companies engaged to prevent gender-based violence. So it's an important mission. It's a huge responsibility, but we believe that also companies can do their duty to promote a cultural change. We work not only in companies, but we promote also social projects, social activity. And this is one of our projects that impact on at local level and in territory. Okay, so next one. The project named From Sign to Dreams, and is a project that Fondazione Libellula carries on from 2021, and it's a training project with which we help social and healthcare staff in hospital and in the emergency room to recognize the sign of domestic violence, even when they are not visible. And we try to help them to respond to the need of these women who are victims of this form of violence. Okay, the next one. Okay. What we do? Okay, the next one. Okay. The next slide, please. Okay. As Chiara said before, this project is not focused on directly on women with disability, but we work on another target, who are the social staff, the social care staff, the health staff, because we think that they have a very important role to recognize this sign, this form of violence, because often this violence is perpetrated in a house, in places that are not so visible. So we think that is very important in a key to prevention. Okay. Now we start with a new edition of this project, focused on social workers. And we think that this project, CARE project, could be a very important project that can create the connection, okay, the network with this kind of activity. Okay, the next one, please. Which needs this project address? The project address to these following needs. So first of all, training social health staff, because in Italy, I don't know at the European level, but in Italy, this kind of staff don't have technical competence on this topic. And so we think that is very important to promote training on this topic. We try to equip in social health staff also with such relational tools and soft skills, okay, so empathic skills, because they are very important to interface with these women. Because often the risk is to victimize a second time, okay, this woman. It's important for understanding the legislation related to case of violence and abuse. Also knowing the service and the resource available on the territory. Because another problem is that there are a lot of services, but these services don't speak each other, okay? And so it's important to create a network where women is on the center, okay? The next one. Two words about the Italian context, okay? Also, if gender-based violence is a transversal phenomenon, but there are some peculiarity, I think. In Italy, 1 woman of 3 have suffered some form of physical or sexual violence during their lives. So 30% of women, okay, have this kind of violence. In 2023, okay, there are around 17,000 access by women to emergency room with indication of violence. There are very huge number. It is an increase about the 2022. The diagnosis most frequently report to abuse, mental trauma, or physical violence, and also sexual abuse. And from 2016 in Italy, we have a Codice Rosa protocol that ensure priority care for women experiencing violence. But what is the problem? That a lot of healthcare professionals lack training to activate it. So we have a law, but we don't have the expertise. So we try to give a solution for this gap. Okay. The next one. Why hospitals are a very important place for prevention? Because many women do not disclose their abuse, okay, when they visit in the emergency room, because there is social stigma, because they are afraid, because a lot of time there is also the husband, okay? And so it's very important that the professional have a technical competence to notice the sign, listen to what remain unsaid, and support women, okay, in taking steps to break free from violence. So encourage them. The next one. The main goal of this program, this project, of course, enhance the skills of social health workers, also promote a multidisciplinary and multi-professional approach, okay, to the topic, because it's a complex topic, and we need also an intersectional approach, okay, to the violence. Not only women, but women with disability, Black women, so a lot of factors that intersectional with this topic. Support network and collaboration between the different professional figures involved, so not all health staff, but social workers. And so CARE-INT is a very important project for us from this point of view. And also support a social media awareness campaign So Fondazione Libellula is also engaged with a campaign to promote this topic at the Italian level. Okay, the next one, please. Okay, what is the core of this project is the training. Okay, the project includes 12 hours of training, focus on an overview of domestic and gender-based violence, so a global data scenario, legal framework, and so on. Of course, the cultural roots and the gender models, because gender-based violence is based on a social view that based on asymmetry of power between genders. The reconnection of main forms and signals, not only the physical violence, but also the psychological, the economic violence, the digital violence, okay? The relation and communicative skills for caring, and the resource network that can be activated. Okay. Very important, after the training, we also work on procedure and protocol. The next slide, please. Because it's very important also give a practical tool to this professional. So after the training, we proceed with a review of the reporting protocol, okay, for case of suspect or confirmed violence. And also we develop a toolkit, okay, for this staff, including a referral mechanism, a checklist for when you meet the woman, and a list of local contact includes the women's shelters, so the Center Anti-Violence. They are the heart of this kind of phenomena. Okay. The next one, please. What are the innovative aspects of this program? First of all, the creation of a multi-professional team. Okay, for us it's very important connecting different service and location. Okay, and also we develop a participatory and shared protocol. So this is not a top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach. The protocol is created with sharing experience, sharing and sharing competence. Okay, and we have a role of facilitator. Okay. And now we train more of 400 people, okay? Involve 11 hospitals and 5 raison reach, okay? In 2 years, 3 years, okay. The next one, please. The sustainability of this project, okay. Also, as a CARE project, we believe a lot of in a flexible design. So these modules are transferable in modular design, that can be adapted and replicate in each hospital, but in each professional bodies, and also in different contexts. Okay. The program is supported by donation from our network, of our company network, and also with the participation of local, national, European tender. Okay, and we have, of course, internal staff specialized in this subject. Okay, the next one. So. A little self-assessment, which is very important for us. So strength, point, and challenge open. Okay, the strength, of course, this kind of professional have access, a free access, okay, to a specialized training, with no additional cost, and there are also the possibility of accreditation. Okay, I don't know in the European level, but in Italy we have a credit for training. And the challenge, so open, first of all, the low participation, because it's not so easy to involve okay, health, social stuff, because they have a lot of care load and try time to develop their competence is not so easy. And also the difficulty in recognize elusive case. In this case, discussion with other social and health social workers helps grow skills. And the last one, the recommendation, okay. I think that it's very important to engage the management, okay. If we have a manager involved, it's easier that the staff participate of this kind of activity. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mara. Very useful in understanding, I would say, the methodology you adopted. So, okay, it was about gender-based violence, maybe not specific for disability, but that's a way that is working. And I think very crucial the fact that all this is happening behind closed doors.
Yes.
Violence, institution, family setting, etc., home. So we need to have someone to kind of, identify the case, and care workers, care professionals are an opportunity for us that we should not miss. So it's really, I hope that we can put there by giving them the right tools, trainings, and helping them to know where to go also and refer cases at the local level. So thank you so much. We are kind of 10 minutes late compared to our agenda. So I first thank you so much, Julia, Elena, and Mara. Thank you so much for your contribution. We break now. It's 11:10. We reconvene, I would say, at 11:40 because we still have time. We can save time from other less important contributions. So no problem, which is mine. So no problem. You enjoy your coffee, stretching your legs, and 11:40 we are back. Thank you so much. Okay, welcome back, everyone. 11:41, yes, almost there, as promised. So let's open the second part of this exchange forum on good practices to tackle intersectional discrimination and violence against women with disabilities. Welcome back, everyone. We heard about the work of a women's committee from Julia, about women with intellectual disabilities and the barriers they face, and the role also of healthcare staff as an opportunity not to be missed. So now I welcome our first speaker of the second session. Welcome Antonella. Antonella Candiago. She's currently working with the European Network on Independent Living. She's a disability rights activist, very expert on gender, intersectional discrimination, and independent living, of course. And previously, she worked for the EU institutions. So Antonella will present addressing intersectional discrimination and gender-based violence against women with disabilities. And if I'm not wrong, you will have also the opportunity to bring probably a national experience and show how youth can be involved. But maybe I'm wrong, so you just you just say whatever you want, and we will be ready and happy to listen to you. So the floor is yours, Antonella. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and hi everyone. Thank you for organizing this event, and also to the previous speakers for the very interesting presentations. As mentioned, I work for the European Network on Independent Living, INIL. We are, just to explain shortly, Europe-wide user-led network of disabled people. And we advocate for the right of disabled people to live independently and be included in the community. What is independent living? It's a human rights-based approach that empowers disabled people to have full control over their own lives and to participate equally in society. So we have different pillars of independent living, such as accessible employment, healthcare, education, personal assistance, and sexual and reproductive health and rights, and many others. INIL works to promote gender equality by addressing the specific barriers that women and girls with disabilities face. This includes raising awareness about gender-based discrimination and advocating for inclusive policies. So HINIL highlights the intersection of gender and disability to ensure that the rights and voices of disabled women are fully recognized and respected. And just to mention some of our previous works on this topic, we organized a training on political participation for women with disabilities. And more recently, we organized a webinar in cooperation with EDF on the cooperation between feminist and disability and independent living movements. We also organized a webinar exploring the intersection of neurodiversity, gender, and disability. And during the summer, we hosted Liderka Summer School, which is a summer school focused on leadership for women with disabilities from EU candidate countries, mainly Ukraine and Georgia. Why independent living matters for gender equality? Independent living helps prevent violence by reducing isolation, dependency, and also economic vulnerability of women. When disabled women have control over their lives and access to support, they are less likely to be subjected to neglect or abuse and financial exploitation. We advocate, for example, for personal assistance and access to community-based services. Ensuring accessible services and inclusive communities allows disabled women to live as equal and active members in society. I will focus on some systemic barriers, stereotypes, and discrimination that women with disabilities face. All these barriers are reinforced by the mix of ableism and sexism. And they, of course, shape policies, services, and the social attitudes in a way that they restrict autonomy and participation. For example, access to sexual and reproductive health and rights is often denied or restricted for women with disabilities, as they may face physical but also informational and attitudinal barriers to healthcare, including, as was mentioned before, forced sterilization or denial of reproductive choices. Also, women with disabilities are less likely to be employed, and they often earn less than both non-disabled women and disabled men. And this kind of discrimination, like inaccessible workplace and lack of support services, contribute to this gap. And as a consequence, they limit their financial independence, making them more vulnerable to financial exploitation. Women with disabilities often face also legal and social barriers to marriage and motherhood, including stereotypes that they are unfit to be partners or parents. And many also risk losing disability benefits or support if they marry or if they have children, creating, again, financial dependence. When it comes to sexuality, women with disabilities are often treated as either asexual or childlike, or are also hypersexualized, leaving them vulnerable to harassment and sexual violence. So this undermines autonomy and contribute to high rates of abuse, sexual violence, and exploitation. Institutionalizations remains also a big barrier to the rights and freedom of disabled women. So being placed in institution often means losing control over daily life, decisions, and also relationships, besides isolating women from their community and limiting their opportunities for education, work, and family life. So as it was mentioned before, institutional settings are high-risk environments where disabled women are very vulnerable to physical, psychological, sexual, and again, also economic violence. And they also face high risk of forced sterilization and other serious human rights violations. It's very important to mainstream disability and ensure a co-production approach. It's fundamental to involve disabled women in policy design and evaluation. To do this, it's really important to share power with disabled people and disabled women when working on policy planning and service deliveries, and collecting the direct experience and really listening what women have to say on this. Another important step in this approach is to train professional and improve the general awareness raising. Training professionals, including police, healthcare workers, social workers, and educators, is really key to preventing secondary victimization. As women with disabilities are often not, for example, believed or taken seriously as victims of sexual violence or sexual harassment, because they do not fit the stereotypical image of a typical victim. awareness raising can help to challenge these stereotypes. It's also very important to provide accessible and inclusive sexual education, which is still largely absent or taboo for disabled young women. Yeah, it's already taboo for non-disabled women, so even more for girls and women with disabilities. I would like to present a good practice from our members from Montenegro, which is a research by this organization called Initiative of Youth with Disabilities of BOCA. This organization conducted the first research in Montenegro focused on violence and discrimination against women and girls with disabilities and the types of support they and also their family need. It was implemented within this project called Women and Girls with Disabilities for Their Equality. And this study involved interviews with, directly with women and girls with disabilities, their family members, and other female activists. And it was really essential to have concrete recommendations on how to improve protection and visibility of women victims of violence. So the research revealed widespread intersectional discriminations and different forms of violence faced by women with disabilities. And these kind of violence and discrimination were often unreported due to distrust in institutions and also lack of accessible support services. It also showed negative social attitudes, including stigma around relationships, motherhood, and reproductive health. When it comes to some of the key findings, the survey revealed that the society in Montenegro values women in traditional roles, so wives, mothers, housewives, and women with disabilities were perceived as unable to fulfill these roles. So this led to systemic marginalization and inferiority. And as a consequence, there was also internalized discrimination and dependence, as many women with disabilities felt forced to accept these stereotypes and saw themselves as less valuable. Women are largely dependent on families for care due to weak institutional and state support, and this fosters also guilt and low self-esteem. Also, women and girls with disabilities who participated in this survey often failed to recognize violence or discrimination or normalize it. So those were rarely reported due to distrust in institutions. And they also noticed there was no reliable data existing on the prevalence of violence and discrimination. So there was a very big invisibility of this issue. As I said, I also face huge barriers to participation and rights, including sexual and reproductive health and rights. Gynecological care is often inaccessible, and when it's accessible, they still had very negative experience with the healthcare providers because of stigma. The result of this work was a report, and this report highlighted the importance of improving data on violence and to strengthen the existing disability and women's rights NGOs, create a dedicated NGO or resource center for women with disabilities, and also donors and state institutions must prioritize data collection, specialized services, and also awareness raising. This study highlighted the need to improve many areas, particularly also the provision of personal assistance, accessible reproductive health care, psychological support, and also clear, accessible information for women and for families on violence and intersectional discrimination. So key recommendation including strengthening legal protection against discrimination and domestic violence, and integrating gender and disability perspective into policies, but also actively involving women with disability in decision-making processes and in more studies like this one. The study also called for enhanced education and empowerment through self-help groups where women can confront among each other and discuss violence and their support needs, and also to improve and enhance specialized services such as helplines and psychological support. As long-term measures, there was also the suggestion to include the establishment of a resource center to improve data collection and ensure there's data and then visibility on this issue, because if there's no visibility, we cannot really focus on solution. It's okay, I think I ran out of time, but yeah, okay, well, but yeah, I concluded.
Thank you so much, Antonella. That was great. And I think it made very clear how important data also are, and research, and to have inclusive research practices. And we usually say, if you are counted, you count. Okay, if you're not counted, you don't count. And that is especially when you develop policies, you develop laws, and you develop also practices too, and services, so are planning for services. So if you're not there, then people are not planning services for you. So I think it's really, really important. And I think another message that I got from your contribution, that let's listen to women first, and let's have women to have control. The more they have control on their life, the less risk are running for being exposed to violence and abuse. So thank you so much. And also you brought a national experience, that was Montenegro. So we now move from another national experience. So Luisa Bosisio Fazzi here with us. She traveled from Italy to just bring her experience. Luisa has a lifelong experience on disability issues, I would say. And of course, she's now representative LEDA committee, women's committee, but she's also member of the board of EDF. And Luisa will present All Women Are Welcome and No One is Excluded. Luisa will present Artemisia project. So I reveal now the title of the project, but she will explain exactly what is it, and maybe about also the name. I must say, is a very well-known project in Italy, very successful, and is kind of model project. So we hope this is going to be, a way of also helping us to create proper training modules in our project CARE-INT. and it also has the power to collect and put together many different sectors, many different actors in a complex and challenging phenomenon like gender-based violence against women with disabilities. So I don't say more than that because Luisa will tell us all. Floor is yours, Luisa.
Thank you, Chiara. Hello to everyone. For me, it's an honor to be here and to have the opportunity to share this project that is focused on the possibility to wide the experience in the action to protect and prevent violence against women with and without disability. My association in this presentation is LEDA, L-E-D-H-A, is a League for the Right of Persons with Disability, and is located in Milan because LEDA is the regional level of the national network of OPDs. Some number, very briefly, LEDA is an independent NGO, is formed by 8 territorial coordination, 1 for each province, that bring out the association of this territory, and 19 regional level of national association of OPDs in Lombardia. In the total, we represent 200 organizations of persons with disability. I am also a member of the EDF Women Committee. The next, please. Okay. Artemisia is the Italian acronym of this project that in English we can translate in emergence of situation of violence through local networks, and was named in honor of Artemisia Gentileschi, born in 1593. Is a famous painter who was sexually assaulted and reacted by bringing the perpetrator to trial and having him convicted. We are speaking about 1593. Was a strong woman for this time. The partner of this project are private association and network of Center Against Violence, family consultancy services, and association of assistive technologies provider. The next, please. The framework of the Artemisia project is the regional system for protecting women against violence in Lombardia, where LEDA operate. This system derives from the national plan, which in turn is based on the 4P of the Istanbul Convention that was ratified in 2013 by Italy: prevention, protection, prosecution, and integrated policy. In Lombardy, it is a multi-agency model involving various public and private bodies and institutions that offering support and protection to women victims of violence. This system operates on 2 levels, regional and local, with the region performing guidance, planning, and coordination function. In detail, locally, the system includes regional anti-violence networks, that is the system that promotes collaboration between authorities, anti-violence centers, shelters, health and social care institutions, and law enforcement agency. The anti-violence center, these offer prevention, reception, and support services to women who are victims of violence, including legal advice, information, and help in finding work and housing, and refugees and shelters that provide safe temporary accommodation for women who have suffered violence. At a regional level, the 4-year regional plan for equality policies and the prevention and combating of violence against women that define the policy guidelines and the in the region, and in this 4-plan region that LEDA as OPD is operating. The Regional Anti-Violence Observatory that collects and processes data on the phenomenon, and the Anti-Violence Helpline 1522, that the national helpline available 24 hours a day, free of charge and accessible throughout Italy. The next, please. The Artemisia project was born out of 2 observations. The absence of relevant data on access and anti-violence network by women with disability show that the situation of violence they experience are still largely hidden. When data are available, they show that disability is one of the causes of denial of access to center anti-violence. This is very important to combat. And the second observation was operator of anti-violence center and shelter are not always able to respond effectively to the intersectional discrimination that these women suffering, having a disability and experiencing a violence. The objective of the project are tackle violence against women and girls with disability, training operator of anti-violence center and shelters to strengthen their skill on disability and local resources useful for supporting path to autonomy, promoting accessibility to operational spaces and contact methods in facility dealing with disability, residences, day center, health services, to facilitate the recognition of signs that may indicate situation of violence. The next, please. To achieve the set objective, a mutual training program was developed between the project partners, aimed at building a common language and integrated similar but also heterogeneous and complementary working methods in line with their respective role. This process led to the creation of a multidisciplinary working team, which is currently focused on 3 strategic areas: training, awareness raising, and accessibility. Training, where 2,032 persons from anti-violence center, local shelters, social services, specialist health services, family counseling centers, social welfare services dealing with disability, association and organization active in gender-based violence or disability or both. These meetings have led to synergize between the words of disability and gender-based violence, initiating a process of co-designing pathway out of violence for women with disability. The area of awareness raising was made in places of life and work at companies. We contact, for example, Lenovo, IBM, Banco of Italy, for example, organize a specific course on the economic for women, the order of lawyers, high schools, students and teachers. Accessibility, staff at anti-violence center and shelters have received training and support on the use of digital technology. We are now used as practical communication tools in the process of welcoming and supporting women with disability toward independence. Revision and drafting of communication materials, website, flyers, poster, and brochure. Renovation of 3 property confiscated from the mafia concerning architectural, environmental, informational, and communication barriers. As you know, mafias is a organized international body of criminals, and this is this confiscation of property is one of the way in which organization can have a physical place to manage their activity. The next, please. As disability movement, we have proposed 3 areas of work: self-determination, intersectionality, and accessibility. Self-determination is a difficult path because it is full of myth and stereotype. The previous speaker has speak about this. Being the holder of rights means being able to exercise them personally. For centuries, it was thought that disability took away a person's voice, judgment, and will. And so decisions are made on behalf of the person. I decide for you. It is not a question of replacing, but of supporting through a supported decision-making process. A significant cultural change is needed that recognizes the full dignity and freedom of women with disability, especially those with intellectual disability. The intersection of gender and disability produce specific and insidious discrimination. The coexistence of different forms of discrimination has a specific and often less obvious effect, generating dynamics that require particular attention in analysis and management. It can be physical, such as isolation, neglect, drug abuse, or the removal of rights, or psychological, such as infantilization, humiliation, or threat related to dependence on career. Sexual violence is often justified by dangerous stereotypes such as the myth of asexuality or conversely hypersexuality, which also led to very serious violations, forced sterilization and or forced contraception. Economic dependence, difficulty in accessing information, and the absence of a safe way out of violence, and the barrier to access to justice. And often the damage is compounded because those who should help, services, institution, operators, are not trained, do not understand, do not listen, and women are not believed. This is what we call secondary victimization. For women with disability, the path out of violence is different. Accessibility, this means ensuring that all women, no one excluded, have the opportunity to access, understand, use, and fully participate in the spaces, services, tools, and content of the system that protect and support them from violence against women. This means simplifying language, using alternative formats, written, audio, visual, improving reception tools and understanding whether an environment can include or exclude, encourage or hinder participation. The last, please. The result, this the last slide. The result was the draft of guidelines for inclusive anti-violence centers, also translated into easy to read language, and a specific section with a self-assessment grid on accessibility. So each center, anti-violence center, can, with this section, self-assess its service. There was the 43% increase between 2023 and 2025 in the number of women with disability who are victims of violence and who have turned to a violence prevention center in the areas covered by the Artemisia project. This is a big outcome. The awareness, not only in the partner, but also in all the body that we meet, the awareness of the complexity of the phenomenon and the need for collaboration between very different entities that have different point of view, speak different languages, act in a heterogeneous way, and follow logics and policies that are not always compatible. And the openness toward other areas outside the project. The last outcome was the initiating process of knowledge, encounter, exchange, and comparison between two worlds that, until recently, traveled on parallel tracks without ever meeting, except by accident. And I want to thank you for the attention, and I was very briefly, but if you need some clarification, I am at your disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Luisa, perfectly on time. But besides that, thank you for giving such a comprehensive picture of a very complex project that satisfied what we need, which is a systemic change. We need a massive systemic change, and therefore we need, be systematically involved in all the levels, from policy to know all the practices, just also how you plan services. So really, thank you so much. I was quite impressed by the fact that you said why you did Project Artemisia is because actually a woman with disability was not accepted maybe in the anti-violence center, which is kind of shocking to me. So yeah, and yes, it was happening in my country. So
the National Institute of Statistics that showed this picture.
No, I believe you. And it is still shocking. So thank you so much. And I mean, you gave a lot of inputs, definitely. Now, I think we have the opportunity to see from these two experiences, Antonella's with Montenegro experience and from Italy with Luisa, we just go to another experience, which is a multi-country experience. So I will ask then Tiziana to come in, Tiziana Fantucchio from ESPD, Senior Project Officer. Thank you, Tiziana, for being here. You have an extensive EU experience in project development and management, and of course also gender focus and experience expertise. So Tiziana will present Response, Enhancing Gender Responsive Services for Women with Disabilities. So let's say we have a project which is multi-country. So do you find the same problems as a one-country experience? So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you to Chiara and CBM Italy. I'm very pleased to be here today. And indeed, so I represent here EASPD, which is the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities. We are also an umbrella organization, membership-based, and we are based here in Brussels. And what we do is to promote equal opportunities and human rights for persons with disabilities, and we represent the voice of service providers. And we represent more than 20,000 service providers for persons with disabilities in Europe, and in particular in 50 countries. We have a team indeed here in Brussels. We have a project team, policy, knowledge, innovation, and we work on different areas. It can be education, early childhood intervention, workforce development, technology, so many areas. And we are trying indeed to work also more and more on the topic of gender equality. So I'm very grateful to the speakers before me for all the data and the context provided. So I'm not gonna provide more data, but indeed our project Response, maybe we can go already to the next slide. was born also from the observation that women with disabilities are more likely to experience gender-based violence. And what I'm gonna add here is that even if we are aware of this observation, yet support services who are indeed meant to support persons with disabilities often lack tools, trainings, awareness, and coordination also to respond in an effective way. And it has happened to me while working with our members that sometimes when we ask whether they have cases of violence or abuse, they say no. And when we ask how do they know, it's because none of the women has ever reported those cases. And then digging more, you understand that maybe they really don't have the tools and awareness of recognizing violence, especially when it's not visible violence. Sometimes we lack tools, like reporting tools for women with disabilities, or even if there are tools in place, they are not communicated to them. So indeed, what we try to do with this project, Response, and we can go to the next slide. So it's an Erasmus Plus project that has indeed the aim to improve the provision of rights-based and gender-responsive services in addressing gender-based violence against women with disabilities. We can go to the next already. Indeed, the project was implemented until last year in 6 countries, in France, Hungary, Lithuania, Poland, Portugal, and Spain. And all of the organization are indeed our members of ESPD. And we can go to the other slide. So we decide indeed, together with our members, to address and target 3 different target groups because we believe they are all essential actors in addressing the topic. And first of all, it was the service providers for persons with disabilities. And this can include any kind of service as daycare, also teachers, educators. Then another actor that we think it's really important is the mainstream service provider. So this can be healthcare professionals, can be legal professionals, or for example, the police. And of course, women with disabilities that were not just the beneficiaries of the project, but also active participants and main actors in the project. We try to use what we called multidisciplinary response during the project, meaning that the main aim was to really bring all these actors together because they usually work on the same issues, but they rarely find themselves in the same space. So we how we decide to bring them together, and we can go to next slide, even another one, sorry. Yes, so the methodology that we developed together with our members was a kind of cascade training model. So each country hosted 5 workshops. And so the first one was called Get Together because included all the target groups. Then 3 workshops with each group individually. And a final one where again everyone was together, but this time to work in a practical way and try to co-design together an ideal gender-responsive service. We based our workshop on this training and awareness-raising manual, which was also converted at the end in a MOOC, which is a free online course and can be still found in our ESPD website. We can go to the next slide. I'm just gonna briefly present the topics of each workshop. So the first one indeed with all the target groups present in the same room. We try to have at least a shared understanding of what gender-based violence means, how an inclusive and gender-sensitive service should look like, and what roles each actor can play in supporting the victims. The second workshop, and we can go, yes, was for service providers that are working in the disability sector. And there we try to, each country try to ask services to look within their own organization to understand where are the barriers in combating gender-based violence, and also other topics where indeed risk factors and how to detect gender-based violence in care settings. Because as I was saying before, one of the main issues is also the capacity of recognizing such violence. The third workshop was for mainstream services, and also here what was important was very interesting to bring together also different services, so it can be police, healthcare professionals, or legal professionals. And this, I have to say, worked really well in some countries. It was very successful how after that actually some of those services really integrated what they learned. And the fourth workshop was with the women with disabilities. And here each country implemented, used easy-to-read materials, participatory exercise when needed. And then the goal was to indeed try to understand together how to identify gender-based violence, but also how to become advocates for the topic. The last workshop was the one where all groups came back together, and of course they shared what they learned, discussed challenges, but as I was saying, the most important part was where participants were asked to co-design together an ideal service, how it should look like. And also from here, what was very important for us is to really create some learning community. So really those participants, they came back together, and we really created some networks that stayed after the project, which I think it's really important, because sometimes the limit of those projects is that when the fund ends, then there is no continuity. And yeah, so all these outputs you can find in our response webpage, and we can go to the next slide. And yeah, so we produced at the beginning a state-of-art report, a training and awareness raising manual that was indeed then converted also in a MOOC, so it's available for everyone. It was translated in 6 languages. And from there, we created those networks of professionals and women with disabilities. And we converted also all these outputs into policy recommendation that we brought then to policymakers that are also one of our main targets as EASPD. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tiziana. So I'm just telling the CARE-INT people that we have so much materials to dig and to study. We have MOOCs and manuals. Before Luisa was also saying there are the guidelines for the anti-violence center. So we do have so much, and we are so much grateful to all the speakers to bring this to the forum. Thank you so much. And I think it was very interesting also the process, because, you know, it was, you put people together to think about things, maybe people that were not actually sitting in the same room. So it's kind of the process in itself, it's a learning opportunity and a mindset changing opportunity. So thank you so much, really. So you were the last speakers, but we have now a time, wonderful, like I would say 25 minutes, just leave me, or even less than 1 minute. I don't need much, but that's all for you. And we need to get the most possible from our wonderful speakers. So we have a round of questions. We do welcome also questions from the audience, so do not hesitate. If you have anything you want to know from our speakers, they're ready to answer. Don't be scared. So if you want to raise your hand, please do so. Otherwise, I think I have something to want to know more about our speakers. In specific, for example, about families, we said, behind closed doors, things may happen, and that, of course, institution, we saw that could be also family settings. So how to address that? So my question would be now to Helena. Helena, that's for you. So I first let you do a short announcement that I know you wanted to make, and then I'll pose my question.
Yes, I just forgot to say we published a report on gender inequality towards women and girls with intellectual disabilities yesterday, where we also talk about violence and sexual violence. So anyone who wants to know more, please go on our website. We're also posted on LinkedIn and Instagram. So yeah, please have a look at that. There's a lot more information there. Thanks.
Thank you. Very useful. Another resource. Then wonderful. Thank you so much. So my question was about families, and I just wanted to know, how can families begin this difficult conversation, about, early conversation, especially maybe they feel unprepared, uncomfortable, and they need to talk to their dear ones about these things.
Yeah, so I think having a conversation that is uncomfortable does not mean you shouldn't have it. I think that whether you have a child with a disability or without, the moment where you give them the talk is uncomfortable, usually for both the children and the parents. But it still happens and it still needs to happen. And I think it is just important for families to just very much be aware, and I think many are, but maybe some aren't or don't want to be. I think it's just a very good starting point to, whether you have a child with a disability or without, be aware that they are sexual beings that are developing, usually around puberty, in that way, and that need to be informed. And if in your family, the family culture really doesn't allow for that conversation to happen, I think the only responsible thing then is to point the children to people in the community, to friends, to family, to peers, that they will be able to provide the information that is important for their children to have in a responsible and maybe more comfortable manner. But in general, I think just because something is awkward doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elena. Very easy solution, it seems. Thank you. So my next question would be for Antonella. Antonella, what do you see as the main challenges and forms of discrimination that women with disabilities face regarding sexuality, and what strategies and intervention you think you could have to help them to address? So you can take 3-4 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, I think some points were already addressed, but from my experience as a disabled woman, I grew up and studied in Italy, which is, as we know, one of the few European countries where there's no mandatory sex education. And when it's provided, like I remember in middle school, the experience was very traumatizing because we had this very sexist and also ableist sex education. So I think we should start from that. Also the lack of representation of disabled bodies and disabled women, not only in the pleasure industry, but everywhere, makes the relationship with our bodies very difficult and conflictual. So it takes time and effort to build healthy relationships with our bodies and feel good in our own skins. That's why I think access to sex education and inclusive sexual education is very essential. And I think, like, as women and as women with disabilities, we make a lot of effort to work on ourselves, to feel good in our own bodies, but then we still step into the external world where stigma and stereotypes are still there. And so without, let's say, collective effort, we cannot really change this, and individual work is not enough. It just turns to be mental effort and stress for us. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Antonella. Thanks a lot. And yeah, the effort has to be of everyone. Yeah, that's very true. So thank you so much. I do have another question for Luisa. Get ready, Luisa. And the question is just, it was such a complex project, Artemisia, and with so many, directions of work. So I just wanted, in practice, to know which are the skills and the areas of expertise that were employed to develop the project and to make these anti-violence centers and shelters more accessible and inclusive. Over to you.
Firstly, we share the partner experience and expertise, because it was sharing knowledge between the expertise of the movement of disability and the expertise on the phenomenon of violence must be shared. Only this we can go forward inside of the project. Because accessibility, for example, is not only physical, environmental accessibility, but also understanding, using, participation in services. We utilize the expertise of those who deal with these spaces, communication, information, assistive technologies, and interpersonal relationship in our partner. In particular, we have worked in the creating inclusive habitat, analog and digital ecosystem that facilitate participation. We made courses of use of assistive technology in welcoming women with disability, and were organized inside of the anti-violence center and for shelter workers. Technical support and training offered both in person and through tutorials helped ensure the informed use of digital technology for benefit of workers, women and children involved. This is important because when we initially encountered in this center, anti-violence center and shelter, we encountered a lot of resistance to digital technologies. It was important to listen to the perspective of this worker. For us, the assistive technology was a tool that promotes autonomy, but for the operator, they posed a potential threat to women's safety. For example, they consider the geolocation system, no? For example. So we help this worker to use in a good way the digital tools. And another important expertise was the expertise of their condition of girls and women with intellectual disability. For this, we ask them to translate in easy to read the guideline, because only from their living experience of understanding and communicate was the possibility to have a good, easy to read guideline.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Luisa. I understand that details are important. Yeah? So it's really about, maybe in our mind, like digital tools are just a way to make things accessible. The other way, they were a threat. So it's really important to understand, to listen, and then go into the details. The small details make the difference. It's very important. So thank you so much, really. So I'll just go to my other speaker, Julia. Julia, you mentioned Women's Committee and how great is also a committee in bridging the gaps between feminism, feminist movement and disability movement, and how they can cooperate. Definitely doing great work together. So if someone has to create a Women's Committee, from where to start and what could be the challenges, and yeah. Over to you.
Thank you, Chiara, and thanks everyone. It's been a very enriching morning, I would say. I'm learning a lot, noting down, and I have some ideas. So thanks for the question as well. I would say that there is no one model fits all. There is no a specific structure to follow, and it's not also our role to tell organization you should do A, B, C, D. That's the way to create such a structure, such a body. So what we aimed and we tried to do is just to give some guidelines, some questions from where to start. And I would say that the first thing is that any organization, but also any groups in society should ask is to really assess the needs and talk to women and girls with disabilities first to understand what's their needs, what's the main barriers that they encounter, what's their aspirations, and maybe sometimes those questions are not asked at all, because many organizations, they just don't ask the question why we should have a women's committee, why gender equality matters. And I think we are all here to really underline how important it is, because we have data, because we have projects, and we assess the needs before starting those projects, those actions. So this means that there is a massive amount of work that we can do together. And and we should start asking women and girls with disabilities what's the main topics we should address, rather it's gender-based violence, access to justice, and so on. And we are also discussing within EDF what could be a structure, a model, some guidelines. And the next week we will do a sort of roundtable where we hear from members that they have settled such dedicated space, for members that they are discussing on how they could do it. So you are all more than welcome. It's open to anyone. So just approach me after if you would be interested to join. And in terms of maybe concretely give few inputs about a sort of structure, of course, an assessment of the needs and purpose, and then anyone can initiate, anyone from any organization can initiate and say, well, why we don't try to establish a women's committee. So there is no necessity that it's the director or the executive committee. Anyone could make the point. But of course, there should be commitment from the leadership and available resources. So it's important before starting anything to advocate for material resources, of course, financial resources, and advocate for this to start. And then it can be a simple discussion within a steering group about what are the objectives we want to achieve. Those are the resources that we have. We do something like we select some members to join, and also regarding the membership, what we suggest is that the membership is as much diverse as it can be in terms of women with different disabilities, but also different background and different age groups. It can be a sort of terms of the reference that people can discuss, and those could be some elements to enter. And then, of course, the roles, what those people would do, would they meet regularly, not, which is their role within the organizations, are they recognized as a governing body or not? But again, nothing is obligatory. It really depends on the organization capacity and structure as well. But then something that can be quite concrete, it's a work program. And also in EDF Women's Committee, the work program is the practical document that helps, that is chosen obviously by the Women's Committee and helps shape the work around a year, or if it's multi-annual, around, for example, 4 years. And this also is a way to show the organization as a whole on what the Women's Committee will focus, which are the areas where also the organization knows that they are working on it, and they can also mainstream when they work with other organizations. But also, I think the Women's Committee, it's not, of course, it's such a fundamental body for awareness raising, for mainstreaming, for knowledge, but it's also a way where members of the women's they can learn from each other. So the capacity building things, the fact to develop knowledge and bringing new initiatives within the members to learn from each other can also be something quite interesting. And then, as it was mentioned before, I think from a process to start and to end, there should be a monitoring evaluation, a sort of report of what the committee can produce, what are the challenges, what can be done in a better way, and that should be sustainable. But really, there is no one model for everything, but it's so important to have this as a cross-cutting thing within our organization to really underline how important it is that we talk about gender equality, we talk about women's rights, and all of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giulia. Thank you. So I understand we need first to ask the right questions and then ask ourselves, okay, why not? Huh? Women's Committee. And thank you again for this appointment. You mentioned, I was wondering, which day is it? Sorry, probably missed. 25. Okay, so we just mark it on the agenda. Thank you so much. And again, also the importance to do this, but to also convince the leadership and to have their endorsement, because it has to be substantiated by also resources, I guess. So very important. Thank you so much, Giulia. So I will just pass with another question to my speaker, Tiziana. Tiziana, you showed, the overall program or projects with different countries, but do you have maybe a specific national example that you want to mention in particular?
So thank you for the question. And so first of all our partners, they did a great job during this project, and they are all service providers for persons with disabilities. But in particular in Spain, so the project there was coordinated by Plena Inclusión, which is indeed an organization working with persons with disabilities. And they managed to bring together a lot of stakeholders. And what I think was kind of essential, what they did, is that they had a great involvement of the national police department in Spain. And so I think it's very important, because first of all, the police usually is one of the first contact point when we talk about victims of gender-based violence in this case, but yet many of those services, they never had a training on how to even interact with women with disabilities, and especially with women with intellectual disabilities. And what was great, I think, about this example is that not only the police got involved in the workshop, they participated, but they continued the training within the police. So one of the trainer, which was a woman with disabilities, became a trainer for the national police in Spain. And from there, they continued having training. They adapted the documents in easy to read. They trained other officers, and they continued the collaboration. So I think that's a very successful example how from maybe just joining one workshop, then you can really create some continuity within such important also service. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiziana. It's really a way of expanding things, and it really multiplies the effect of the project. And probably also you were proud also of this result, I guess, because it's really, I would say, an excellent indicator of success, of the project. Thank you so much. And then my last question would be for Mara. Mara, I think you presented this model that you implemented for training healthcare staff on detecting violence against women. But how do you foresee, after the all discussion we had today, maybe you have already some ideas on how to adapt maybe the model you know best to what is the need now?
Thank you, Chiara. I'm very glad to be here. I came back home with a new idea and new highs. Okay. The question is very interesting. The answer is yes, because our model is a flexible model, is a transferable model. Of course, we can adapt it to the specific need of this kind of target. How? Okay, Fondazione Libellula has the gender expertise. So we work on this topic from a lot of years. And I think that it's important to involve also care and disability expert for a more suitable training. But after the speech of Antonella, I think that it's very important also involve women with disability for a co-design because I think that the mutual learning, the co-design is the more important solution to engage each part. So not only the social worker or the care worker, but also the women with disability. And well, I think that the key word is network collaboration, and we can bring the model, but the model is only the start point. Okay, I think that the solution is to co-design. Okay, and with different eyes, different perspective, different experience, and also for have a more engaged and in training. Okay, because I said before, it's not so easy to involve in this kind of training the professional because they have they work, they are very busy. So if we try the solution to engage them, why is important attend this training? Maybe the solution is the co-design. Yeah.
That's the reason why you are here also.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Wonderful. So I do thank you really so much, everyone. People sitting here, people following us via YouTube event. Thank you so much. And I think I also have to recognize all the efforts also from our interpreters, Adam, Gerina, Kelly, for the captioning, and our great technical support sitting here, led by Panos, but we have Flora, Marta, Daniel, Sami, and great team. Thank you so much. It is a complex phenomenon. I think we saw it. It is very much multifaceted and widespread, rooted in prejudice, discriminatory behaviors. We know all that. And I think what we realized this morning, that together we can find solutions, we can find systemic solutions. It is working. That's the thing, it is working. We can really improve the life of women with disabilities in that sense. So we saw many experiences. I will not go through all that because I don't have time, but yeah, I can say that the ball is rolling now, has been rolling so far thanks to the experiences of my colleagues, and it will continue to do so. So I would say that at the end of this first exchange of experiences, as Julia this morning said, there will be a digital compendium, and then possibly also we will end up creating training models, so with the colleagues here also. So I think those modules will be another asset, as many we had so far received generously from the speakers, to create our care professionals and make them really allies for this cause. So I hope that everyone will feel more equipped and ready to do something, ready to act, and not feeling alone, because we are all together on this. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day. Picture time.